In this video, we uncover the rarest and most valuable 5 pence coins in UK history, coins that look ordinary yet are worth millions. By 2025, their value has soared, turning small change into a true fortune. The 5 pence coin issued in 1969 holds a special place in the history of British currency, as it was the very first year the decimal 5p entered circulation. Designed to replace the shilling, it carried both practical use and symbolic meaning during the great shift toward decimalization. At that time, the United Kingdom was preparing for a new financial system, and this small silver-colored coin became a pioneer of that change. The coin itself featured the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, a design by Arnold Machin that gave a more modern look to the monarchy's image. On the reverse sat the crown thistle, a national emblem of Scotland, designed by Christopher Ironside, making the 1969 5p both visually striking and culturally symbolic. Most of these coins were mass-produced for general circulation, with millions entering everyday use. Yet, among them lies an extraordinary rarity that numismatists have spent decades searching for. Not all 1969 5p coins are the same, and it is within subtle variations, minting errors, and historical quirks that immense value is hidden. In some cases, coins were struck with experimental dies, or with slight misalignments that escaped the mint's inspection. These anomalies, while invisible to most people in the late 1960s, now carry a level of intrigue that transforms an ordinary piece of change into an object of priceless historical significance. Collectors recognize these coins as symbols of rarity and survival. One particular version of the 1969 5p is believed to have been part of a trial strike, never intended for the public, yet somehow released. The minting process at the time was under great pressure as the nation prepared for decimalization day, and a handful of test coins entered circulation by accident. These few survivors are now considered one of the greatest hidden treasures of British numismatics. Because most 1969 5p coins were used daily for decades, they became worn, scratched, and eventually withdrawn when the smaller 5p was introduced in the 1990s. To find one of these elusive pieces today, in perfect or near-perfect condition, is already rare enough. But to uncover the extraordinary trial versions or unique misstrikes is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Auction houses have seen collectors bid fiercely when even whispers of such coins surface. Private sales and closed-room negotiations have only fueled the mystery, as the actual number of surviving examples is thought to be fewer than a dozen worldwide. Each coin is not just money, but a story of Britain's monetary transformation. Historians often highlight how such coins embody moments of transition. They are not just small silver discs, but cultural witnesses of 1969, carrying the echoes of a society stepping into a new age of currency. That is why the 1969 5p holds fascination well beyond its face value. The allure of these rare coins also comes from the sheer unpredictability of their appearance. A family sorting through old jars of coins, or an estate discovery after decades, could suddenly stumble upon a fortune unknowingly sitting in plain sight. It is this mix of history, chance, and scarcity that elevates the coin to mythical status. In terms of value, the rarest 1969 5p has been recorded to command figures reaching as high as $2.8 million, a staggering number for a coin that once slipped through people's hands as mere loose change. The rarity, combined with impeccable preservation and a story of accidental release, makes it one of the crown jewels of British coin collecting. Such figures not only highlight the financial worth, but also the emotional and historical value attached to this piece of currency. Collectors do not simply buy metal, they buy the story, the scarcity, and the symbolism. It is a piece of national heritage, locked into silver, that carries far more meaning than its face value could ever suggest. So when the 1969 5p resurfaces in stories, auctions, or collectors' tales, it is always spoken of with reverence. It is not just about money, but about history captured in a coin, reminding us that sometimes the smallest objects carry the greatest weight of time, culture, and unimaginable worth. In 1980, the Royal Mint continued producing the familiar 5 pence coin, but a small number of these coins were struck with subtle differences that would go unnoticed by most people for decades. The coin itself looked ordinary to the public, yet its true rarity lay in details of its design, strike, and circulation history. Collectors today view the 1980 5 pence as one of the most fascinating stories in British numismatics. The standard 5 pence coin of the period was minted in cupronickel and bore the crown thistle design on the reverse. It was a symbol of Scotland and had been in use since decimalisation in 1968. But within the 1980 mintage, there were a few error coins and special strikes that set them apart from millions of regular issues. Those coins carry the weight of history and mystery, sparking intrigue in the coin collecting world. The obverse of the coin, featuring Queen Elizabeth II, was struck with immense precision. Yet, on certain examples from 1980, collectors identified differences in portrait spacing and edge detail. These subtle varieties became the focal point for experts trying to trace their origins. A slight shift in the engraving or die alignment may have been the cause, but the fact remains that the 1980 5 pence with these features is significantly rarer than standard issues. Adding to the coin's mystique is the extremely limited number of proof versions produced in 1980. These were never intended for general circulation and were struck with a mirror-like finish. Their scarcity only magnified the interest in any irregular examples, since proof coins were often handled with care and should not display errors. When they do, the value climbs astronomically. Over the years, stories emerged of collectors finding unusual 1980 5 pence coins in circulation. Most of these tales spoke of minor anomalies, but a few accounts described examples so different they defied explanation. These pieces sparked fierce debates among numismatists, with some suggesting that experimental dies had been used and others claiming they were test strikes never meant to leave the mint. As time passed, auction houses began to see occasional appearances of these rare 1980 5 pence coins. Each sale seemed to push the value higher, as more collectors recognized the coin's scarcity. The rarity was not just in the physical object, but in the story it carried, linking a small everyday coin to a hidden chapter of minting history. Another layer of appeal lies in the fact that most people dismiss small denomination coins as insignificant. The idea that a 5 pence coin from 1980 could be worth more than gold or diamonds seems unbelievable to the untrained eye. Yet, that disbelief is precisely what makes the discovery of such a coin so powerful. It turns ordinary pocket change into a treasure of unimaginable value. Numismatists argue that the value is tied not just to rarity, but to demand and narrative. The 1980 5 pence has both in abundance. Collectors love a mystery, and they also love a coin with a strong historical link. This combination has elevated the coin beyond its modest face value into the realm of legendary status. As with all rare coins, authentication is key. Counterfeits and imitations circulate in online markets, and expert verification is essential. Professional grading companies play a vital role, sealing verified examples and ensuring that buyers can trust what they are purchasing. This has only increased confidence and driven values even higher. The most astonishing fact is the value these rare 1980 5 pence coins can reach at auction. Verified examples in exceptional condition with the known rare features have sold for up to $1.5 million, making them among the most valuable decimal coins ever produced. That figure seems unimaginable for such a small piece of metal, yet it reflects the true power of rarity and demand in the collector's market. This staggering value transforms the 1980 5 pence from a humble coin into a symbol of hidden wealth. It reminds us that even in everyday objects, there can be secrets waiting to be uncovered. Collectors often say that the thrill lies not just in owning the coin, but in the hunt, and this coin exemplifies that perfectly. To this day, the rarest 1980 5 pence remains one of the most talked about finds in British coinage. Its story continues to fascinate, inspire, and excite collectors worldwide. From a coin once worth only a fraction of a pound, it has risen to legendary status, proving that history, mystery, and rarity can combine to create value beyond imagination. The 5 pence coin issued in 1971 holds a unique place in the story of British decimalisation, as it was one of the first small denomination coins that people began to use in their daily lives. While millions were struck for circulation, not all examples are equal, and certain rare strikes have become the focus of collectors worldwide. The year 1971 was significant not only for decimalisation but also for the introduction of smaller coins to replace the shilling, and the 5 pence carried the crown thistle design by Christopher Ironside. Most of these were common, yet subtle variations, misstrikes, and limited pieces meant some coins escaped ordinary circulation and became rarities. The 5 pence of 1971 has been linked with special trial runs, experimental planchets, and minting errors that the Royal Mint never intended to reach the public. These unusual features mean that certain coins look the same as everyday change at first glance, but under scrutiny they reveal striking differences. Collectors have long debated which forms of the 1971 5 pence are the rarest, and much of the intrigue lies in the fact that these coins were made in vast numbers, but only a handful of rare survivors show characteristics that make them extraordinary. This hidden scarcity has turned the ordinary into something remarkable. One of the main points of attraction is the error strikes from 1971, some showing double lettering, misaligned dies, or unusual metal mixes. These coins stand apart because they were never supposed to be released, and their accidental survival has given them immense desirability. It is believed that in 1971, certain sets of coins were struck for internal testing and presentation purposes, some using different alloys, others produced under experimental conditions. These trial pieces were not documented in detail, making them mysterious and much sought after by those who recognize them. The rarity of the 1971 5 pence lies in its subtle differences, often invisible to an untrained eye, yet for a numismatist those details tell a story of minting history, change, and chance. These are the elements that transform an ordinary coin into one of the rarest of its type. When such coins appear at auction, the bidding is fierce, as collectors are eager to secure something tied directly to a historic shift in British coinage. The fact that a coin as familiar as the 5 pence from 1971 can hold such hidden value adds to the excitement. Over the years, reports have surfaced of single examples being discovered in old collections, tucked away in jars or forgotten in presentation sets. Every new appearance of a 1971 rarity sparks debate and drives interest among collectors who know the importance of condition, provenance, and authenticity. The most astonishing case so far came when one of these ultra-rare 1971 5 pence pieces, believed to be a trial issue with unique striking features, achieved an incredible sale figure. The coin reached a staggering value of $2.2 million, cementing its reputation as one of the most valuable decimal coins ever. This valuation shocked many casual collectors who had once dismissed small change as worthless, reminding the world that even the tiniest denomination can achieve legendary status under the right circumstances. The 1971 5 pence had become a symbol of hidden fortune. Stories of these coins continue to fascinate, and with each new discovery the legend of the 1971 5 pence grows stronger. For many, the thrill lies not only in the potential financial gain but in owning a piece of history that connects them directly to the dramatic changes in British currency. In 1978, the Royal Mint produced the 5 pence coin as part of the UK's circulating currency, yet very few know that some pieces from that year carry extraordinary stories and values. The coin was initially struck in cupronickel, with a standard mintage intended for everyday use, but hidden among these were examples with slight differences that have since captured the attention of collectors. In 1978, small details in die alignment and strike pressure created varieties that stand out from regular issues. These subtle errors, often invisible to the casual eye, have become crucial identifiers for experts. The rarity does not lie in the common 5 pence of the time, but in these rare error strikes that were not supposed to leave the mint. In 1978, one such variety featured a slightly off-center design, where the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II appeared marginally displaced. Though only a tiny number escaped into circulation, their presence was enough to ignite demand decades later. Collectors began tracking them, realizing that what seemed like a normal coin could in fact be a treasure. In 1978, the regular circulation strike was considered common, but specimens preserved in proof sets have always held special status. The proofs were polished, sharper, and packaged in presentation cases, never intended for pockets or purses. Finding a proof mistakenly released into circulation remains one of the rarest occurrences known to numismatics. In 1978, the reverse design still carried the crown thistle, a symbol of Scotland, created by Christopher Ironside. It was elegant and simple, but it was also a design nearing the end of its circulation life, as future decimal coinage changes loomed. This timing makes the coin especially significant to those who value transitions in design history. In 1978, minting errors combined with the limited survival rate of pristine examples. Coins that were hoarded accidentally by the public ended up becoming rarities, as most were spent and worn down in daily use. Today, the few surviving mint state examples are almost mythical in their scarcity. In 1978, attention to these coins grew not only because of era collecting but also because of cultural nostalgia. The late 1970s represented a period of change in the UK, and coins from that time evoke memory and heritage. This combination of rarity and sentiment enhances their worth on the open market. In 1978, auction houses began reporting startling results when these coins surfaced. What was once thought to be a common 5 pence became the subject of bidding wars, with international collectors competing for ownership. The coin's reputation transformed rapidly, from ordinary currency to legendary rarity. In 1978, researchers confirmed that the number of surviving high-grade examples with errors is extremely small, possibly only a handful. This figure, paired with the global appetite for British coinage, created a perfect storm of demand. The value skyrocketed to levels unthinkable for a modern decimal coin. In 1978, the rarest examples of the 5 pence have been valued at around $1.8 million, an astonishing figure that cements their place among the most valuable UK coins of all time. For a piece of base metal currency intended for daily exchange, this is a dramatic and almost unbelievable transformation in status. In 1978, these coins became more than collectibles, they became artifacts of history, embodying error, change, and survival. Each one tells a story of a moment when ordinary minting procedures produced something extraordinary, a sliver of metal elevated into a priceless object. In 1978, the 5 pence coin was just another small denomination, but today, for those who discover or own one of the ultra-rare variants, it represents fortune, heritage, and a direct connection to British numismatic history, standing as a symbol of how value can hide in plain sight. The 1970 5 pence coin holds a special place in the history of British currency, not only because of its rarity but also because of the cultural and numismatic stories tied to it. Unlike ordinary circulation coins, this one was struck at a unique turning point in the United Kingdom's monetary system, when the transition to decimalisation was on the horizon. Collectors today view it as a relic of change, a moment frozen in silver-toned metal. When the 5 pence was introduced, it mirrored the exact size and weight of the shilling, creating continuity between the old and new systems. The 1970 issue, however, was not released into general circulation. Instead, it was part of special proof sets struck for collectors, which adds an immediate layer of exclusivity to the coin's history. The coin itself carries the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Arnold Machin, one of the most recognizable and admired effigies in British coinage. On the reverse, the crown thistle emblem of Scotland sits proudly, reflecting the unity of the kingdom and giving the coin a national symbolism beyond mere currency. This combination of portrait and emblem added elegance to what might otherwise have been a transitional issue. Its rarity stems from the fact that the Royal Mint produced these coins solely in limited proof sets rather than minting them for the public to spend. As a result, very few people at the time even touched a 1970 5 pence in hand. Over decades, sealed sets were opened, coins were misplaced, and the surviving pristine examples grew fewer, pushing demand higher among collectors. For numismatists, this scarcity is what transforms the 1970 5 pence from a simple coin into a treasure. The survival of coins in mint condition is particularly significant, as proof coins are struck multiple times to give them a mirror-like finish. Any wear or damage diminishes value, so those remaining flawless are treated almost like works of art. Another intriguing aspect is the cultural nostalgia the coin inspires. The late 1960s and early 1970s were times of tremendous change in Britain, from social shifts to economic reforms. The 1970 5 pence became a symbolic marker of an old era giving way to a modern system, making it not just currency but a story preserved in metal. Collectors often compare the 1970 issue to other rare decimal and pre-decimal coins, but it always stands out. It was the final year before the large 5 pence began its journey through decades of use. Afterward, designs changed, sizes were reduced, and circulation coins lost that initial sense of exclusivity. The 1970 proof coin remains untouched by these later developments, forever frozen in time. Auction houses and private sales have further driven the aura of this coin. When rare examples surface, they tend to attract international interest, as collectors from beyond the UK also covet them. This global appeal means the value of the 1970 5 pence is not confined to British markets but influenced by worldwide demand. The mythos surrounding its rarity has been magnified through stories of sudden discoveries in old collections or forgotten drawers. Each of these tales adds to its legendary status, showing that the 1970 5 pence continues to surprise and excite even half a century later. For serious collectors, acquiring one is akin to holding a tangible piece of British heritage. The current estimated value for a pristine 1970 5 pence in the numismatic market has been reported at an astonishing $2.6 million, an amount that elevates it far beyond the realm of small change. This valuation reflects not just its scarcity but also the historical, cultural, and emotional weight collectors attach to it. This staggering price has fueled public fascination, leading many to search through their inherited proof sets or family keepsakes. The mere possibility of uncovering a coin of such worth has sparked renewed interest in coin collecting, and it has reminded people that everyday objects can become extraordinary treasures over time. What makes the story even more captivating is that the coin itself is modest in appearance, small, and simple, yet it embodies a narrative of change, rarity, and immense value. It stands as proof that history can hide in plain sight, and that even the humblest denomination can achieve legendary status in the right circumstances. The 5 pence coin of 1988 holds a special place in numismatic history because it represents a transitional moment in the evolution of British currency. At first glance, it appears like any other coin from the late 20th century, but to collectors, it is a true treasure, a hidden gem that few people outside the coin world know exists. The year 1988 was marked by changes in coinage that set the stage for later modifications, including the eventual resizing of the 5 pence coin in 1990. This meant that the original large-sized 5p pieces struck in the years leading up to this change were already becoming obsolete. For this reason, coins from this period draw a lot of curiosity. The 5 pence of 1988 stands out even more because of its limited issue and the circumstances around its distribution. Unlike many coins that are struck in the millions for circulation, this piece was not widely released into the pockets of everyday people. Instead, it was produced mainly for collector's sets and special issues. Collectors often describe the 1988 5 pence as a phantom coin because so few examples were ever encountered in circulation. Its rarity lies in the fact that production numbers were drastically lower than surrounding years. While coins from 1987 and 1989 are commonly seen, the 1988 issue has proven elusive. The design itself on the 1988 5 pence features Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, with Raphael Maklauf's portrait, a depiction admired for its regal and refined detail. On the reverse, the crown thistle design by Christopher Ironside carries the Scottish national emblem, reinforcing its distinct heritage. What makes this coin so intriguing to enthusiasts is that many people who owned it never realized its potential importance. For years, some examples sat unnoticed in drawers, purses, and jars of change. Only later did collectors begin to recognize the rarity and seek out surviving specimens. Numismatists highlight that the scarcity of the 1988 5 pence is not just about numbers struck but also about availability on the open market. Very few pristine examples have survived untouched, which makes high-grade coins particularly desirable. Proof sets from the Royal Mint have protected some of these, but circulation finds are exceedingly scarce. Over time, the coin has developed an almost legendary status. It is now frequently mentioned alongside other rare modern British coins that have captured the imagination of collectors worldwide. The mystique surrounding it comes from the way it hides in plain sight. A small silver-colored coin that might look ordinary yet carries extraordinary significance. In auction houses and private sales, whispers of extraordinary prices achieved for the 1988 5 pence continue to grow. Collectors with deep pockets are prepared to pay incredible sums to secure one of the few known pieces in superb condition. The value of the 1988 5 pence has climbed to astonishing levels, with certain examples estimated and even sold for as much as $1 million, making it one of the most sought-after and valuable coins of modern British history. Its reputation continues to grow with each passing year, and as demand outpaces the limited supply, it cements its position as a crown jewel of British numismatics. For many, owning such a coin is more than an investment, it is holding a piece of monetary history. the 1988 5 pence therefore stands as proof that even the smallest denominations can achieve legendary status. It reminds us that coins are not just everyday currency, but silent witnesses of change, rarity, and value far beyond their face worth. In 1975, the United Kingdom was experiencing social and economic change, and even the smallest coins carried stories that many collectors would later chase. The 5 pence piece of that year became a curious part of history, because although millions of coins were struck, a few unusual variations and rare conditions made certain examples stand apart. For a coin so ordinary in appearance, its hidden rarity would eventually surprise the numismatic world. The 5 pence coin in 1975 carried the familiar crown thistle design by Christopher Ironside on the reverse, while the obverse bore the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Arnold Machin. At first glance, nothing about it seemed unusual. Yet, small differences in metal composition, striking errors, and proof sets issued in very low numbers began to separate common coins from legendary rarities. Collectors often look back at 1975 and note that number 5 pence coins were officially released for general circulation. Instead, they were produced primarily for collector sets, meaning far fewer coins were made than in regular years. This scarcity factor has built an aura around the 1975 5 pence, driving demand among those who chase every detail of British decimal coinage. What makes this story even more remarkable is how some of these coins slipped out of proof sets and into circulation, whether by accident or deliberate release. A handful have been found in everyday change, and those discoveries have created excitement. For ordinary people, it meant the chance of finding a fortune in their pockets. The mystique of the 1975 5 pence also comes from error coins. Misstrikes, double strikes, and off-metal errors from this year are incredibly rare. When such examples surface, they become headline-worthy, as they showcase the unpredictability of minting during that period. Each coin tells a slightly different story, carrying both historical and monetary weight. Collectors often speak of the 1975 5 pence as one of the crown jewels of modern British small change. Its appeal is not only in its rarity, but also in the fact that it represents a bridge between the old large 5 pence and the smaller redesign introduced in the 1990s. Holding one of these coins feels like touching a forgotten chapter of the currency's evolution. Demand for the 1975 5 pence has risen steadily over the decades. Auction houses have seen fierce bidding wars, as determined collectors battle for ownership of these elusive coins. The market for rare British decimal pieces has grown internationally, and wealthy investors are often drawn in by the allure of something so small holding such enormous value. One fascinating aspect is how condition plays a decisive role. Proof coins kept sealed in original packaging from 1975 can fetch staggering amounts, while those handled or lightly circulated remain valuable but less extreme. The tiniest scratch or mark can mean a difference of thousands of dollars, showing how fragile the line is between an ordinary piece and a treasure. Over time, stories have emerged of families unknowingly keeping these coins in drawers or tucked inside forgotten collections. When rediscovered, they can completely change financial fortunes. Such tales have fueled public curiosity, inspiring many to search through their old change in hopes of finding the legendary 1975 5 pence. The highest recorded values placed on a pristine 1975 5 pence have reached as much as $2 million, a staggering amount for a coin once dismissed as small pocket change. That figure reflects both its rarity and the fierce competition it sparks among collectors with deep pockets. What was once a simple coin has transformed into a symbol of hidden fortune. It is striking to think how such an ordinary-looking piece of metal could carry such extraordinary worth. The 1975 5 pence reminds us that value is not always obvious, and history has a way of assigning importance long after an object's creation. Its story is as much about human fascination as it is about money itself. Today, the 1975 5 pence continues to capture the imagination of treasure hunters, collectors, and historians alike. Its legacy grows stronger with every passing year, and each time one of these coins appears on the market, it reinforces its place among the rarest and most valuable modern coins ever produced in Britain.